Well, good evening, everyone. We are here for the Lincoln Project Town Hall. I'm Maya May, and I'm here with the Rick Wilson, who is in Florida as we speak. But we're not talking about Florida tonight. We're talking about Wisconsin, which is probably where Rick should be headed right about.
Fewer hurricanes in Wisconsin.
So fewer hurricanes. But what we're talking about tonight is more votes, getting out the vote. This is a part of our Lincoln Project Town Hall series that we're going to be doing weekly every Monday through the midterms, November 8th. And each week we're going to be highlighting a state that is critical to not just the midterms, but critical to 2024. And so that is a lot of what we talk about at the Lincoln Project, is understanding that strategy, as you know. So before we hop into it, really quickly, I want to just talk about that strategy and how we choose which races are so key. So Rick, can you jump in?
Of course. Well, first off, folks, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time and your attention. Hope we can give you some information that will help you be motivated and help you get out and motivate others and cast your ballot this election cycle, because it really is one of the biggest election cycles in our history, for a simple reason. Democracy in the future of this country is on the ballot. It's on the ballot, especially in Wisconsin, where we have a challenge where Ron Johnson, one of the worst of the election deniers and Republican weirdo caucus, is essentially one of the biggest targets out there. That race is enormously important. The governor's race is enormously important, and as Maya said, we do a lot of targeting in the Lincoln Project, but we can't be everywhere. And so we have chosen that we're going to make Wisconsin one of the places we focus on. The Johnson versus Barnes race, and of course the Evers versus Michels race. Those are going to get national attention. And they're certainly going to get our attention. So with that, excuse me, I'm going to have to let a dog out of the house, into the house. Excuse me.
I was going to say, it could be getting crazy out there. So definitely let the dog in. So as Rick was saying, we work with the Union. That is our pro-democracy organization. It's a coalition of organizations all throughout the country, grassroots organizations who really have an understanding of what voters need on the ground and how to get people motivated and engaged. And so we are here to amplify that because we have to. We have to be very, very loud about democracy right now if we want to save it. So we are going to bring in our partner from Souls to the Polls, Reverend Greg Lewis, right now, and introduce you to him, because he has really a lot to say about how to get people out to the polls and what's going on in Wisconsin. So if we could bring in the Reverend Lewis. Hello, Reverend. How are you?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, we're excited.
My pleasure, definitely.
So, Reverend Lewis, you're in Wisconsin. You are the co-founder of Souls to the Polls. Can you give us just a little background on what the organization does?
Well, back in 2011, we found out that we could go vote on Sundays, and we just start saying that, man, we got to get our folks out after church. And I just said it's Souls to the Polls. I don't know who started it, but that's how we started it here.
Rhyming's always good.
Yeah. So what we do is, we have to make sure that we give folks information, education, when, where, why, how, what, everything, having to do with voting. You could get it through our Souls to the Polls network. And we make sure that we get as many people as we can to the polls, early vote, absentee vote, Sunday voting especially. As a matter of fact, our Sunday voting has been cut since Souls to the Polls has used it so much, so that our legislature is really, tough on voters, suppression, that kind of thing. So everything we do, they've cut, the days of voting, locations for early voting, but that doesn't stop anything. So, we always have to really engage our community into understanding their power. It seems like everybody understands the power except us. People think that Wisconsin is a really white state. But it's 61% white. It's 18.7% Hispanic, 12.6% Black, 6% Asian. So it's 39%, with the rest of the minorities. but it's 61%, you know, our white brothers and sisters, and they're split right down the middle. And, you know, the minorities really have the power to make the difference, but they don't know it. And so we try to spread the word that you do have the power. You can make decisions. This is a democracy. You have the right to vote. But people are trying to make sure that you don't vote. So I don't understand why you think your vote doesn't count. You know, when you got 61 suppression obstacles in your way the last time we've counted, you know, how can you think your vote doesn't count? That's what we do with Souls to the Polls.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm having that conversation a lot with
Mhm.
my family members in places like Georgia, and I don't have any family in Wisconsin, but you're on the ground there. And Rick, you know a lot about this
Sure.
voter repression and exactly what they're trying to pull off in Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is critical, because if we have somebody in charge of Wisconsin who's an election denier or who,
Right.
so can you
Listen,
talk to, yeah.
It
that's
would be
exactly
devastating.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Maya and Rev. Wisconsin is going to continue to be a red-ish swing state for a while now. The number of Trump profile voters who are leaving Wisconsin to come down to places like Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, that are moving south is making the state a little more diverse over time. And you've got a significant growth curve in places like Brown County and Milwaukee, where that's starting to offset a lot of the traditional rural Republican-based vote. And so that is why you saw the legislature take up this bill that was very strong, these restrictions on voting rights. And it's a cut and paste bill that they've passed in a lot of different states. Comes out of the Heritage Foundation and some guys who are really not good people who are trying to ensure that if the states don't look demographically like they want, then the voting pool is the one that they select, not the people voting their conscience. So it's a challenge in Wisconsin, particularly, again, because it will be a state where we have a legislature that will most likely, if Trump is on the ballot again, they won't count the votes. They'll just count his intention. They'll just make a decision on what he wants and go forward with it. And that's why I think the work of the Souls to the Polls and many other groups that we're allied with in Wisconsin and many other groups that are out there at the grassroots level that are trying to motivate folks to get out and vote, trying to help them understand the minefield you have to walk through anymore to go out and get a ballot and cast a vote. And some of the legal allies we've got in Wisconsin and beyond who are challenging some of these rules and restrictions because they really are anti-small d Democratic. Mm-hmm. They are anti-small r Republican. These things, people should look at these things as anathema to America's character. Yeah. We are supposed to be a feisty, loud, noisy democracy where everybody gets in a room and while we can argue our tails off during the election season, then we try to do good for the people. Okay. And we've gotten a long way away from that in the Republican Party in this era. So Wisconsin's one of those places that we're keeping an eye on it because of the restrictions that have been passed, because of the intent to do more, because of the danger in 2024 of the Wisconsin legislature. So, I mean, I guess, Maya, that takes us into sort of like looking at where the races stand in the state right now, and sort of a feel for where the ball is.
Yeah, right now it looks like Evers is polling +2, which feels like that's a good thing, right? But
it's better than it was. I would like it to be a little higher, and he should be higher. I mean, the economy is starting to turn around.
Right.
The gas prices and inflation are lowering in Wisconsin, and so. It seems like Evers, who is not, I mean, I'm nothing but honest. He's not the most charismatic governor in the country.
No.
But he's fine. And Michels, and I'm sure the Rev could tell us more about this, Michels is really far out there on the edge. And I don't mean just that he's a conservative. I mean, he's out there on the edge because he's a little off kilter with some QAnon and election conspiracy things that I think Wisconsin voters really need to think about and have a look at.
Yeah, Reverend Lewis, is that what you're out there, you're meeting with the people, you're connecting with the people. Do they have an understanding of how much of a threat Michels is to their democracy, to their livelihoods?
You know, that's a good question, because one of the biggest problems we have here in Wisconsin is just getting people in my community to understand there's a vote November 8th.
Hmm.
People are so discouraged with all the mess that's going on. And, you know, there was a time when, you know, folks in my community, black folks, brown folks, you know, they all didn't trust, you know, the system. Now nobody trusts the system. And now, you know, it's hard to get folks excited about somebody like a Evers, and even, you know, our Senate candidate. It's tough doing that, and they're not really paying attention. That's why we exist, because we have to bring things to their attention. Like the other day, Michels made a statement that he was calling out his people to get out their torches and pitchforks. You know,
I'm sorry, what?
yeah, torches and pitchforks. See, you know that.
Well,
You know, so I said, so, you know, we went to Appleton, Wisconsin, because he was having a fundraiser with this Gableman guy who is certainly a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, you know, protesting outside. And I just asked the question, man, what do you mean by torches and pitchforks? Because I'm from Louisiana. And when somebody comes down the road with torches and pitchforks, you know, that's meaningful to a black.
that's a pretty loud dog whistle.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and that's a question the media should be asking him as well.
Exactly. But that's the thing about Wisconsin and Milwaukee. You know, it never gets the national attention that it should, with folks like this making statements like this. I mean, where is the outcry? This guy is literally talking about acting like a Klansman. To be honest with you, I'm like, you know, get your torches and pitchforks. You know that. But you know, he says that he's no way racist, or, you know, he's not bigoted. You know, he just wants to do the right thing. So who can say? I can't call him a racist. I can't call him a bigot, because he can say, no, I'm not. And then I say, well, I guess you're not if you don't think you are. But when you say things like that, it really brings, you know, the hair up on, you know, black folks' back, because we know what that means.
Yeah,
we absolutely do.
Say things like that.
Being raised in the South and living in North Florida, I can tell you that has a very specific connotation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as broad as his excuse for it might be in the South in particular. And I'm sure, as you've noted, in the African American community, it has a much more charged implication. And you know, and unfortunately, you know, Michels is a guy who clearly is willing to scoot up to and put a toe over that line again and again and again. And after a while, you start to see a pattern in these things where it's not just a slip of the tongue or a joke or a line that went wrong.
Right.
It's a pattern, and it's a dog whistle to certain people in his base that he wants them to hear that message.
Yep.
He wants African American voters to be scared, and he wants a certain part of his base to be like, yeah, that's my guy. He scares those people.
Well, and when I'm seeing a lot of the ads, what I'm seeing is those aren't even dog. I mean, some of these ads that they're putting out, it's
wow.
You know, they're trying to make Barnes look like he's a criminal in some of them.
Well, you know, as a matter of fact, you know, I have to put together a op-ed, and you know, and I'm having trouble because you have to be very careful with this, because it can be determined that you know, there's a willingness for me to, you know, play the race card. I just want to, you know, I just want to make people aware that the elephant in the room in most of these cases is obviously the truth. You know, these ads are really, you know, derogatory, but not just to Mr. Barnes. They're derogatory to a whole group of people, and they're letting folks know that we need to be against them, and we need to be afraid of them, and we need to make sure they don't get in power. And that is starting to work, because Mandela was up 7 points, and now he's down in most polls at least 1 or 2 points. In one poll, he was down 4. So that's why. But see, I'm gonna tell you something. Here in Wisconsin, what you don't consider is my community coming out to vote, the Black community and the Hispanic community coming out to vote. You don't consider that. And when Scott Walker was here as governor, they said he couldn't be beat. And I thought he couldn't be beat also when I went to bed. But when I woke up and they counted those votes where we go vote, we call it Midtown, and they counted those absentee ballots where we asked people to send those ballots in. And when they counted that Sunday voting, he had lost by 30,000 votes. That was back then. We've gotten a lot more aggressive in getting people organized and ready to go vote than we were back then. But it's harder now. I can tell you that it's harder because people aren't excited about, our choices, especially young folks. So we've started to, really try to engage young people and, the 30 to 45-year-olds and those kind of things. But it's really tough now just trying to get folks to understand that, man, you got to get out here and vote. And I don't think people are considering that we're going to get this vote out. And I think they're wrong, because now we're knocking on more doors. And if we had more money, we'd knock on more doors. But, it's always, see, and then here's the thing, with both parties, the Republican Party, they probably don't really consider giving us much money because we don't vote Republican. But the Democratic Party, they take us for granted. They don't put money in community, so we're kind of stuck there. Man, the first person to raise up and do something good for these communities is going to be in charge of these communities. I can tell you that right now, because listen, people understand when you help them and do things for them. But when you do nothing, that's what they expect from you, nothing. And they don't want to engage. And that's what's happening. And then all the things that are happening outside of, the suppression is just, fodder for people not to believe in a system. And that's what's happening here. This isn't checkers, it's chess. People have been downtrodden, smashed in, they've been inculcated with a degree of success that I can't even explain to you. They don't think that they count. They don't think that they can do anything to change things. And that's how people are feeling in this community right now. And that's why we exist, to wake them up and let them know they have power. And that's what's happening right now. That's what we're doing. So it's a fixed fight. Let me tell you, the referees are against us, but we still have the talent to win.
Still TKO, man.
Yeah.
I was going to say, absolutely have the talent. Obviously have the energy. And I like what you talk about reaching the young people, because I saw you on TikTok and I was like, there we go. An organization that understands where to find the young people. And these are important things. But let's talk in specific about what does move Wisconsin voters, because you're talking about, they're not doing anything for them. We've seen Kevin McCarthy's plan for America. That's not doing anything for anybody. It's just fear, and more fear. So what are the issues that are top of mind for Wisconsin voters?
Well, we try to work a lot on things on the off election years, like housing. Those are things that really are difficult situations for people who don't have resources, housing, and then the crime and incarceration rates. And right now, the big thing is abortion. These women are upset, man.
We are.
They've got.
It's interesting because way back in the beginning of my career as a consultant, the firm I worked for represented Tommy Thompson. And he got out in front of his skis a little too far on abortion. I think it was the 1994 race. In fact, I'm sure it was 92 or 94. And he had to do an ad that we filmed. And he said, he even Tommy Thompson, who was very pro-life, said, I still believe in exceptions for rape, incest, the life of the mother. These are my views. I'm pro-life. And then he said, and as always, I'm willing to listen to yours. Now, you can't imagine a Republican saying that in this day and age. It's impossible. But he found out that Wisconsin has a very strong pro-life contingent and a very strong pro-choice contingent. That's not just in Dane County in Madison. It's also in wealthier suburbs around Milwaukee. It's also in places that where the Bannon line voters, the Lincoln Project voters that we've been very successful at reaching the last couple of years, live and vote. So I think that's something that you're seeing a lot of candidates across the country on the Republican side scrub off their previous yay, I'm so 100% pro-life abortion ban stuff, and it's impossible though. You can't get that stink off in time for the election, and so I think you are going to see a lot of Wisconsin women who, traditionally, if you model out the pro-choice, pro-life model with Republican women, between 22 and 25% of Republican women are pro-choice, explicitly pro-choice, and between 15 and 18% of Republican men are explicitly pro-choice. Now, Dobbs has activated those people, and I think, especially because Wisconsin has a lot of educated, suburban, wealthier suburbs where that's going to be a big issue. I think that could make a lot of difference in the campaign this year, especially because, both Michels and Johnson have pretty extreme positions on the matter, no matter what they do to their websites this week.
Yeah, and Evers is even hitting them on changing up, and he basically flat out called them liars for trying to change up.
Well, if the truth fits.
Right, so it sounds like, Reverend Lewis, are the women going to be fooled by this erasing of these websites?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, see, and I'm a minister, so I can't really be a cheerleader for abortion. I
don't think anyone is.
Yeah, so I can't. I kind of don't touch that situation.
Well, but you know what? And here's how I feel about it. And I come from a background where I have, as a former Republican, as a limited government conservative, anyone is free to be pro-life and not have an abortion. And I think abortion's morally complicated. But on the other side of the fence, I know for sure it is not government's damn business.
Hello.
Okay. I mean, that's where I think a lot of Americans are. I think it's where a lot of Wisconsin voters are. I think it's where a lot of people, across the country who have seen this suddenly brought into a very, stark relief. And I don't know what they may have. I just don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the Republicans in Wisconsin are pushing a lot of the sort of Greg Abbott style abortion bills or not, but we've seen those things go over like a wet blanket in most states. So we'll see how that plays. But I can tell you, it is affecting races across the country. I'm sure Wisconsin will also see that effect. To what degree, I'm not sure yet, but I'm sure it will certainly see that effect.
Yeah, and on the turnout angle, I think that is where I'm hoping to see it. It's getting people energized to get out there.
Yes, exactly.
Have a better understanding of what it means to keep their rights, their privacy rights, and what's at stake. So we've talked about both the governor's race, the Senate race. I don't know if we want to chime in a little bit about Johnson, because we've got to talk about Ron Johnson, because he's really one of the. The guy, he's like every bad politician cliche wrapped up into one guy. He's just an ass, and people dislike him for a reason. And look, he's going to go after Barnes on crime, because he has nothing else. He's an unlikable person, and his desperation is it reeks. His desperation reeks.
But what does that say about Wisconsin? Because he's up, a point and a half.
Listen. He's running a campaign based on crime,
lots of money,
which is a sadly, part of the secret sauce of the Republican Party.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yes.
In this country, and has been for a long time. And I think Barnes, I mean, tough love here. I think he was a little slow to respond to it.
Right.
And a little slow to come out of the box and go, no, you're the one who supports a guy who tried to burn down the country. You're the one who supports a guy who steals, nuclear secrets. You want to talk about crime? Let's start with the Trump family.
Yeah.
And I think he might have been a little slow on that, but I think there's still some time to get back in that fight.
Well, see, I think you're right. And, so I want, I'm going to write an op-ed about that situation. And Mr. Wilson, the reason,
you don't have to call me Mr. Rev. I work for a living.
Well, Rick, the reason I took this opportunity was because of you, because I watch you, and you've always been very reasonable. And I was kind of concerned a bit because of who I am, but because I kind of fight vigorously against, suppression and the way that this state has been run by legislators who have drawn lines to make sure they stay in power for years and years and years.
Oh, yeah.
And I call it scorched earth politics, because they'll do anything, they'll burn anything, they'll destroy anything just to stay in power. And what I'm concerned about in Wisconsin is people voting against their own self-interest.
Well, look at what happened. Look at what happened to Robin Voss.
Yeah,
now, folks, most folks watching this, and we're not from Wisconsin, have no idea who Robin Voss is. But Robin Voss has been a Republican power broker, Speaker of the Assembly. He is a guy who had a lot of power in Wisconsin.
Yes.
You know what mistake he made, everybody? He made a mistake. He said that Trump didn't win the election.
Right.
And so what happened? The crazies came out. They ran a crazy against him in a primary. And a guy who had all the money in the world, all the power in the world, all the position, and could call in every favor under the sun, he ain't Speaker anymore. He ain't in the Wisconsin Assembly anymore. And I think it is one of those things where it's kind of a secret weapon on our side, that there are people out there who they're boxed in to Trumpism. They're boxed into, the lie that Trump won the election. They're boxed into, a lot of the things that make them vulnerable and make them less acceptable to folks out in the real world than the people who are watching, 12 hours of Fox every day.
So I'm glad that we had this opportunity, because I'd like to, discuss something with you that maybe you can help me with, and that's our response to this Johnson guy. What do we say to the people about him? Because he's like Mr. Rogers kind of guy with a pitchfork and a torch. he's
Mr. Rogers, only QAnon adjacent. He's Mr. Rogers, only conspiratorial. He approves of criminal behavior, and I think because he's made the race about crime, turn that around. Because you know what? He's a lot closer to crime and approves of more crime than Mandela Barnes does.
Absolutely.
Mandela Barnes isn't out there saying, yes, I think people who violate the law and commit crimes, I think they're great people and they won. He is saying that. Johnson is saying that about Donald Trump. So I think that is something that, as a framing mechanism, is probably a really smart way to go in there to make that comparison. And I think for Barnes, it also needs to come down a little bit. He needs to be seen by Wisconsin voters as a guy who is not going to live up to the cliche that Johnson's trying to stick him with.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Johnson wants him to be seen. Oh, he's a fire-breathing communist. Yeah, come on. Nobody's a communist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think Barnes can, in some ways, temperamentally get to the right of Johnson. Johnson he's erratic. He's weird. He's conspiratorial. I think there's a part of Barnes that's just like, guys, I'm not a crazy person. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm not a crazy person. This other guy, he may be from here, but he's also living part-time in another dimension.
Yeah, he is. Certainly.
There it is.
I mean,
The masterclass in messaging.
yeah, I met with him a couple of times, and you know, it was quite interesting. But I don't think he wants to meet with me now. I just think that Barnes has got to stop being so nice.
Johnson is a strange cat, but he's got a guy advising him named Chris LaCivita.
Yes,
and Chris LaCivita is very willing to use, historically speaking, some very racially charged images, language, and strategies in campaigns, and particularly about crime. He's used that successfully. So Barnes should know there's a playbook out there that's being run against him. That is, you can go out and Google this guy. You can see what he does.
I was like, I think you might be Googling it now. I feel like
yeah.
I'm just like,
yeah. You know, Chris LaCivitas, huh?
LaCivita, yeah.
LaCivita, okay.
So there's one race I don't know that much about, but it's that Wisconsin, the Wisconsin 3 race with Van Orden. Do you know anything about that race? I haven't studied it that closely.
No.
So
okay.
I can tell you what I know about it because I studied it a little bit, and it turns out this dude used campaign funds to take part in the Capitol riot, and they didn't even
Yeah,
they just were like, that's bad, but that's it. And so when you want to talk about yes, like use actual campaign funds to get there was on the Capitol grounds on January 6th. And so if people who and also he doesn't want to debate. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. I'm like, you want to riot, but you don't want to debate? Like
you strongly believe in the First Amendment until you have to actually put it out there. Tell me more.
Yeah, it's just like it blows my mind, but it's so important to highlight that when you want to know how to fight back, Reverend Lewis. You already said that you're out there vigorously talking about these issues. Then that's what everybody's waiting for. When Dark Brandon came out, everybody was like, "Yes, this is what we've been waiting for the Democrats to do." And I can see that energy in you, and that you're doing it. And so I think more of that, and encouraging other people to do more of that, not just face to face in person, but online on TikTok, like you're doing. So
yeah. Maya,
and I'm willing to do it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm willing to do it because I don't think that our candidate is willing to fight back. He wants to be perceived as a nice guy, and and they're stepping all over him. But I'm willing to do it, and I think we have a voice that could get the point across. We just need some very strong language to address that situation. These commercials are just despicable, and we have to find a way to fight back because I don't think his advisors are allowing him to do that. He's still riding on tractors, and he's asking people to understand his mother.
Nothing wrong riding on tractors, but I will say this.
His mother's a teacher, his dad worked third shift. I'm like, hey man, these guys are crushing you, man. You need to anyway.
But so
I'm willing to do that. I just Mr. Wilson, can we exchange numbers? I'd like to talk to you.
Sure, we'll hook it up. We'll make it happen.
Please.
We'll make it happen. I'll have them connect with you.
Please do. Don't forget about me because we need to do
we won't.
Yes. We won't. Don't you worry about that.
Yes.
Wisconsin is very important. And we have actually some audience questions. I want to make sure.
All right, let's do it.
So let's hop on that real quickly. Henry S. asks, I'm from Wisconsin and doing everything I can to try to remove Ron Johnson from the Senate. What can organizers like me do more of to help get out the vote? I'm going to give that question to you, Reverend.
Well, what we have started to do is really knock on doors. That is something that we just continuously knocking on doors. There's 200,000 folks who didn't vote in the last 2 national elections that have been taken off the voter roll. They call it purging. Yep. And we have been knocking on doors, helping people to understand that you have to get back on these voter rolls. You have to start to vote again so that we can have a voice in what goes on, not only in our cities and states, but in this country. So if you're an organizer, I would certainly, really push you pulling people together who can knock on doors in communities that have, felt like they've been left out of the process. I mean, that's what we're doing right now. Someone asked me the other day, if you had money, what would you do right now? Knock on doors. I'd be knocking on every door that I could. In our state is Beloit, Racine, Kenosha, Green Bay. I was surprised that I was surprised that Mr. Wilson knew about that, but he does his homework. Green Bay, Appleton, we're knocking on doors. Every little penny we can get, we're going to knock on doors. That's what you can do as an organizer. Organize folks to let people know there's a vote. People don't even know there's a vote November 8th. Can you believe it?
That's always a challenge, is that people don't look. And it used to be a luxury in this country, Rev, where people didn't have to worry about elections.
Right.
They if they didn't vote one cycle or 1 year, okay, get back to it next time. It's not the end of the world. Well, now it might be if you don't get out there and get it
exactly.
And it's enormously important, and the work you're doing is enormously important. We are so grateful that we got a chance to talk tonight. Any more questions, Maya?
Yeah, we actually have a few more questions, and I do want to reiterate that part about purging, because it feels like the movie The Purge, and they try to purge these roles. So I want to make sure people know to get out there and register, or check their registration, because these Republicans.
That's what purging is. If you're not voting in those last two elections, they take you off the registration list. You have to re-register just to go back to vote.
Yep, absolutely. So we do have two more questions. We kind of touched on Angelica's question, but I'll throw it out there just so we have an opportunity to address it. What issues are you seeing impact Wisconsin voters the most? You've mentioned crime, Reverend, but I'm actually curious, is the individual actually impacted by crime, or is just Fox News telling them that they're being impacted by crime?
Well, in city news stations all over the country, in these metropolitan cities, that is the spotlight, crime. If you didn't know any better, you think that I ought to be scared to walk out my door right now. I don't even watch the news. I watch national. I don't watch our news because all it is about somebody committing these heinous crimes, shootings, stabbings, all that kind of stuff. And people in my community are concerned about that. Older people are concerned. Right. They want to sit on their porches and enjoy the fresh air just like anyone else. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They've worked all their lives. Can I please have a break? See, that's what I mean by crime. I don't mean it to scare folks into thinking that, folks in our community are looking to damage and hurt and maim folks just because. I don't mean it like that, like these ads. I mean it like, if you've been downtrodden for decades and centuries, Maya, now you can say the chickens are coming home to roost. No education. You don't own any businesses. You're not really owning homes. This is the worst place for home ownership in the country. The second worst city is Milwaukee, the second worst big city. All these things have occurred and people have lost hope. And now they're angry. And that has been a problem. So in our community, yes, we listen, we want to live in peaceful areas like anybody else. And that's what I mean by crime.
And Rick, did you want to have any? Because we've talked about crime. I feel like,
I think the tragic irony of the crime argument with Republicans is they are willing to look away from police reform and justice reform in the cities. And they will run away from it and hide from that issue all day long. Mm-hmm. But they will make up the imaginary demons that, oh no, if you don't vote for Ron Johnson, Antifa and Black Lives Matter will burn the city down and they'll come in the suburbs and kill you. And it is a deeply cynical and deeply ugly, and frankly, it's reached the point in our society where it's profoundly corrosive to the democracy we live in, that that there is a party who are incentivized every single day to go out and lie about the character and behavior of African Americans and other minorities in the country in order to keep a bunch of 65-year-old white people without a college education scared crapless all day long.
Hi there.
Well said. Well said.
Well, I was going to say nothing more to add for me on that.
Well said.
We got one more question from Brandon C.
Okay.
I think this is a good question. Why is Wisconsin one of your target states? How does it compare to states like Michigan and Pennsylvania? And I have a feeling the answer to this question, which I'm throwing to you, Rick, I have a feeling the answer to this question is going to help you, Reverend Lewis, get people out to the polls.
Well, let me say this. Pennsylvania is a problem that is more or less in hand at this point. Mastriano is profoundly unpopular. We have taken the wood to the guy in recent days. We're going to be in that fight because he is an enormous danger to the country. Michigan, Governor Whitmer's numbers have improved dramatically. We were worried about that earlier in the year. Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State race there, which is an incredibly important race, is starting to look better. We're still going to keep an eye on all those states. But Wisconsin is a state where in the 2024 election, if we have a group of Republican leaders in that state, they are going to throw the election to Donald Trump, and we know they will. They've told us explicitly that's what they'll do. So that's one of the reasons. And it's also because it's winnable. If you do the work, if you punch the work out every day, if you go out every day, beat down the doors, make that voter contact, nothing is more powerful. Oh, look, I'm a guy who makes TV ads, and people love my TV ads. They love the stuff that we produce, the Lincoln Project, me and Stuart and everybody, and Michelle. We make all these ads, and people are like, those are amazing. And they move people. But I will tell you from experience and from science, the number one way to get or change a vote is a personal connection to someone where you're willing to go to their door, knock on their door and say, hey, I'm voting for Mandela Barnes this year because the following 3 reasons. I don't know what you're going to do. I hope you'll think about it and join me in that vote. That is the most compelling argument, is that someone took the time to come to your house, to knock on your door, to ask for your time and your attention and your courtesy, and that they engage with you at a level that's human and direct and personable. And I think that's the best thing to do. And that's the hard work of winning. And it can overcome a lot of things. You got to do a lot of things right in politics, but if you're doing that part right, the other stuff is easier. So that's one of the reasons we're so focused on Wisconsin, or several really.
Yeah, and I think if Wisconsin falls, I think it will have a domino effect. That's what I really believe in states a lot like Wisconsin.
Yes, I think that's right, Rev. And I think there's a lot of argument to be made that the infection of QAnon and election conspiracy has found a very fertile ground in Wisconsin. And it's important that the voters in Wisconsin make a decision. Are they going to be part of this conspiracy movement, or are they going to be part of an American democracy that lives in reality?
Exactly. I mean, that's hey, Rick, that's why I enjoy you when you're on. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, but you make so much sense. And, we probably disagree on some things, but I don't think that the basic necessities of lives of people, we don't disagree on.
Not in the slightest. And the ideas that I used to think were Republican ideas, they're really that party is gone, and the ideas that they represent now are conspiracy, cruelty, craziness.
Wow.
This performance art weirdo, world that they live in. That's not about any kind of political value. It's not left or right. It's just power. And, we got to all stand up to that if we're going to save this country.
Absolutely.
That's what I say, man. That's what I say. And that's why we do. Listen, the number one thing I tell everybody is that, we brought some real fire to this situation here in Wisconsin, because as Milwaukee goes, Wisconsin goes. If we get folks out to vote, we can really have a significant effect on the election. And right now, our number one mindset is to get out and knock on these doors. But
Yep.
We're putting up billboards, signs on buildings. We work with Milwaukee Public Schools, local colleges to get out to vote. Man, we got T-shirts, caps, yard signs, rallies, registration gatherings, internet communications, rise to the polls, including on voting day and early voting. We work on collaborating with other organizations. Voces de la Frontera, or SEIU. Voces is our Hispanic partners, and SEIU is the largest union in North America, I believe. And Fight for 15, Families Workers Party, NAACP. We work with the teachers union, labor unions. We do radio programs every Wednesday at 1:00, radio commercials, organizing in Appleton, Green Bay, Racine, Kenosha, Beloit, Waukesha, Clamacine, knocking on over 200,000 doors. And right now, we're protesting injustice year-round, housing, crime, COVID, always recruiting help, fundraising, organizing. We want to rock the vote to get young people in here. Get somebody coming in who can really rock it. And, we're going to have something really huge, Rick. We're going to call it the Midtown Meetup, where on Sunday, October 30th, we're going to get about 8 buses and 8 churches to fill them up. And we're going to go to early voting on that day. And we're going to ask about 416 faith leaders to bring their folks also. And we're just going to crowd up that place and vote like crazy.
Get on it.
I love
Get on it.
Yes. I was like, I love this energy. And because the thing is, like everybody's saying right here tonight, and I'm sure everybody watching at home knows, it's critical. It's critical not just to, it's critical to 2024, right? And voting is about those margins. And so getting people out is very important. I want to talk about worst case scenario, though. I don't want to scare people into voting, but what might happen if Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes go to Republicans in 2024? What could our world look like?
It gets real hard to make that map work.
Yeah,
without Wisconsin,
it'll be disastrous.
It gets real hard to make that map work
because Wisconsin is kind of like the nice guy of the of the suppression. But like I said earlier, I think it would be a domino effect if you lose Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Because it kind of legitimizes the rest of the states going the same way. If Wisconsin could do it, Wisconsin used to be one of the most progressive states.
Absolutely.
In the Midwest. And now if they go ahead and release Wisconsin to the dogs, I think people will follow that. And I want to say one other thing. If we had money just to do a commercial at the end, see that those are so expensive. If we had money to do a commercial at the end, I think that would be enormous for us. The only thing we're unable to do is that television. That television is so expensive. And
so they tell me.
It's been said.
Yeah, somebody help us. Is anybody out there? Yeah. Please help us.
But that's why
and help us when I rock the vote, man. It might cost like $40,000 just to get one of these big time rappers to come in and say, "Hey, young people, let's vote." See, but we need that to happen because 18 to 30 is not voting. They aren't voting, and we need those people to come out. That's why we want to rock the vote. They
sadly rarely do.
But it's changing. It's changing because they see the need of the moment, and they're realizing and recognizing right now these are their futures that are on the line. I'd love to see somebody from the Milwaukee Bucks come out. That would be great.
Right. I think we're gonna attract the big guy to come out one of these.
Well, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Giannis, I think we're gonna ask him to. I know that. But yeah, we need some young folks to come out and. This is a critical election for us because if we don't do something right now, we're going to be sitting around looking crazy and dumbfounded at one another, wondering what happened. Well, I can tell you what happened. When you were supposed to move, you didn't move, and now you don't have a chance to move. So you got to wait till next time, and that could just be too late. Because I'll tell you something else about Wisconsin. Once you get in office, it's hard to take you out. And comments are hard to beat in Wisconsin. It's almost
that is a very true
impossible.
statement.
So, let's everybody, come on, we got to get out here, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to get busy.
If
If
people in Wisconsin have half the energy that you do, I think we
Right?
are going to be moving in the right direction. So let's do it.
Done and done.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, so the calls to action, because I think it's really important that we wrap every show with really important calls to actions. There's a couple things we talked about, but making sure you register to vote, checking that voter registration, making sure you're not purged from the voter rolls. That's important.
That's happening so many places. It's
and
so
making
important.
and making sure that your polling place has not moved. That goes along with that.
Okay. And then getting to the polling places, because that's that souls to the polls.
Oh, yeah.
You are organizing free rides to the polls again for the midterms. But there are needs around that. Can you talk about some of the needs and if where people can go to help facilitate these rides?
Well, you can volunteer to give rides at www.soulstothepolls.wi Wisconsin.org. And you can get all the information you need for volunteering to do things like rides. And we want to give rides during early voting also, not just on the day of voting, early voting. And make sure, I'll tell you one thing that's very important. Send in those absentee ballots, because if they don't get there by 8 o'clock on November 8th, your vote will not be counted. And that could be hundreds of thousands of votes if those people don't send those absentee ballots in. And of course, we'd love you to donate. Go to our website and donate at www.soulstothepolls.wisconsin.org. Go do that and then get involved. Sign up to be a volunteer with us. We have a person who is an expert at getting people to help. And you've met her, Norma Ballantyne. I don't know if you've met her, Norma Ballantyne, but we have our she organizes our volunteers and man, if you can, get to the website, get all the information about voting, and get to understand that you do have a responsibility to help your neighbor, and we have to do that together if we expect to continue to have a democracy that's worth anything.
Thank you, Reverend.
Sir. Well said. So that has been, thank you so much for this energy. I know you've energized a lot of people in the comments. And so we very much appreciate you coming here and sharing your knowledge about what's happening in Wisconsin. And trust me, our eyes are on Wisconsin. We will be continuing to elevate. We understand the importance of it. And we're going to keep shouting it so that they can hear us in the back as much as possible. Truly. Go ahead,
Maya, I'm going to tell you something. The work is being done here, and we're going to get it done. They've always, doubted whether we were going to get it done in the past. We haven't lost yet. When we work, we win. This is going to be a tough one, and nobody can outwork us. If you can outwork me, you can win. But nobody has done that yet. So let's do it. Let's get it. I enjoyed you. You are energy. And Mr. Wilson, Rick, I mean, listen, I'm one of your fans, man.
We'll connect.
Yes, sir.
I love it. You have another. I love it. This is how we grow our democracy, by coming together across perceived differences and coming together and saying, hey, how do we make this democracy work for everybody? Because that's the beauty of being American. We can do that.
That's the beauty.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in tonight. You can follow us at lincolnproject.us. Also, don't forget, jointheunion.us. We need volunteers. We push these people out to different organizations across the country that need volunteers who have skills just like you. Of course, follow Souls to the Polls, wi.org. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Good night, folks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.